What's up, people and takus? My name's Otaku Reaper, and yeah, this is my ugly face. I'm too lazy to animate and do any fancy edit. This is also my third attempt at recording this, and I don't have that much time left, so I'm gonna try my best to record it. So basically, I read the entirety of Mushoku Tensei. You know, the web novel, the closest thing to the raw source material than the native Japanese web novel. So it took me about, I'd say, more or less a month and a half to read the entirety of it. Now, after reading it, it became my favorite isekai. Before that, it was Konosuba, and it's up there in the ranking with Slime, Overlord, Jojo Senki, Re:Zero. It's up there, but Mushoku Tensei is my favorite isekai, and that won't be changing anytime soon. Especially after completing it yesterday. It's it was beautiful. It was a beautiful story and kind of struggling to keep my word to get my words out because I I want to talk about it, but it's just please ignore that car. It's just that the words aren't coming. Like the sensation of finish reading something so great just leaves you with an empty void in your chest and being unable to explain it well. So I'll just go right out and say it. The story has a wonderful world that feels so lived in. It's so fleshed out. All the regions, all the different people, all the different cultures, all the different practices, all the different foods that they eat. It's a lived in world. You truly feel that every place you go, no two people will be the same. If it was a D&D campaign, I would love to have it there, but man, that would be a long homebrew book that I would have to write, but it's a great fantasy world, especially when you explore it throughout the duration of the journey. I won't be spoiling anything right now, but let's just say that each region, each continent, it's a whole mini journey on its own discovering the different cultures. The story makes sure to reflect the different practices that each of the group of people have. That's a weird sentence. Please ignore that car as well. The story makes sure to show all the different groups of people that inhabit the world of Mushoku Tensei. Now, besides the world building, which I adore greatly, there's the magic system, which is quite simple and quite universal, matter of fact, well, with the ranking system. So the magic system is quite simple. You have the elements, you have the levels of the attunement that you have with those elements if you're a spellcaster, and mana. Mana has a large importance in the story, but I won't be explaining that now. Just know that in regards to the magic system, it's simply put best because it's quite simple. And the ranking system is universal because it applies to not just the spellcasters, it applies to the fighters as well, the sword masters, the generalists, and the ninjas in some cases. But it's a good ranking system because when you meet someone new, you immediately know how strong they are by simply their title. Or depending on what other titles they hold, then you more or less show concern or not or respect them deeply. Moving on from the magic system, I like to say that the characters on a whole are wonderful. The whole cast so far, the anime has only shown Rudius, Eris, Rigard, his little sisters for a little bit, Roxy, and Sylphie. Now, I'm not gonna be spoiling anything right now, but let's just say like when you meet the full cast of characters, man, does it feel nice when you reach the end of the story. However, meeting them for the first time is great too because you get to see how they grow up. Just like Rudius, all of the characters have their own character arcs. Sorry for the voice crack. Yeah, all of them have their own character arcs, and some of them get more, some of them get less. Some of them are less developed than others, but all of them do change from when you first meet them to the last time you see them. Now, Mushoku Tensei is called the godfather of, or the grandfather godfather of the modern isekai genre. So it's not the first isekai, and it holds that title pretty well. But I don't want to refer to it as that. It's my favorite isekai, but I rather call it the NGE of isekai. So NGE, Neon Genesis Evangelion. The groundbreaking, influential anime back in the 90s. Well, I think Mushoku Tensei did that for the isekai genre in a whole, because there are a lot of plot points and tropes that Mushoku Tensei had that when I think back to it or when I watch the currently airing isekai anime, I can make a whole checklist and observe like, oh, this is just this plot point but repackaged this way. This is just this character but watered down. It really changed the way I look at other isekai stories because I know all the tropes. I've seen them executed wonderfully and beautifully in Mushoku Tensei. Some shows execute it more or less the same, some do it lesser, and some water it down so bad. But moving on from being the bedrock of the isekai genre, this part is gonna have a lot of spoilers, heavy spoilers for the entire series. I'm gonna be treating it as if you've read the entire series yourself. If you don't want to be spoiled, just click to whatever part of the screen I'm putting on time right now, where I'm thanking the author and then my friends, and you can move on with your day. But if you don't care about that or you've read the story, you can stick around. I welcome you to that. Now for why I love Mushoku Tensei. So I'll just get right on and say it. I love Rudius as the main character. He's not some self-insert character. He's not some overpowered character. Well, yeah, he kind of gets overpowered later in the story, but he's he's just a normal guy who got isekai'd. Well, he was a loser and a degenerate beforehand, and yeah, he had a pretty shitty life. He got bullied into seclusion, but his development from someone who was completely isolated and cut off, closed off to his own beliefs and desires, to someone who grows to being such a wonderful and legendary person in the world. It's a very long journey, but it's a rewarding journey. Each one of the story arcs that he crosses through, each one of the events that he causes or the situation that he finds himself in, it's executed greatly because Rudius as a character works so well. He doesn't just come up with the good plan. He doesn't just come up with a good plan on the spot. He doesn't just think way beforehand and come up with the perfect plan beforehand. He's not a perfect character, and that's what makes him a good character because he's flawed. He's horny on main, even though his horny side dies for a little while, and it dies again later in the story, but for better reasons. He or I relate more to Rudius, I think, mainly because like I'm isolated from the world. I've been in my room for about 2 years. I consume a shitload of anime and doujins, and I'm a degenerate. But I relate to Rudius on that aspect. But man, Rudius really did develop so much from the beginning to the end. His wonder of the world, learning how it works from the first his days as an adventurer, to being depressed after Eris supposedly leaves him, to reuniting with Sophie at the magic school. It was stellar when he had to take up the role of Paul as the head of the household, and especially when he reconciled with his real parents, the ones before he got reincarnated. He never really got to thank them for what they tried doing with him, even though they couldn't get him out of the hole that he was stuck in. Rudius did become a better person. He reconciled with his dad and he gained so much more respect for both his parents, his reincarnated parents, and his current parents. Rudius became such an upstanding person from such a little piece of shit that it's immaculate at how much he's revered in the world. At the end of the web novel, he has his entire biography. I won't lie, I was so happy seeing how his life changed from a young boy being raised in a tiny village to one of the seven major world powers, a legendary figure that people are not even sure existed. The fact that he met such godlike beings in the world. From just a tiny boy in a village. Well, that's for the world. But from our perspective, reader, it's a loser, the bottom of society, the scum. He became the complete opposite. He was at the very top of society. He knew everyone. He was had so many allies. Basically, Rudius as a main character for Isekai. Yes, he's horny on main. Yes, he's like Kazuma and a lot of other characters that are just perverted, but he makes sure that he doesn't just push his desires on everyone. He makes sure to be their friend first, know them, trust them, and hang out with them. He's truly a good main character for a story. Any example of a good main character, I'll put Rudius as a good fantasy character. Now, moving on from the main character, there's my best girl. Now, Roxy is the actual best girl, but my best girl is Eris. Now, at first I didn't really like Eris because, it's a tsundere, they're annoying, the trope's been done to death. But over time, her tsundere-ness kinda, I shouldn't say watered down, but developed into something that's not a tsundere. Yeah, she still beats him down whenever he touches her boobs or something, but she doesn't just dodge the fact that she likes him. She goes full heart. She had the highest libido out of all of his wives, and that's saying something compared to that household. So the reason I like Eris so much is not because her libido is so high. Yeah, that's aspect of it too. But I like her so much because she's so self-determined. She'd build an entire ship on herself. Yeah, she'll get some help from Rudius, but she's gonna sail it in a direction and make sure it lands. I love how she's so self-determined, and mainly because she does what she wants and no one can get in her way. Not even Orsted could get in her way to meeting Rudius. She was willing to die and cut down Orsted herself just to meet Rudius one more time. Her determination was interstellar at how high it was, and that's why I like Eris so much. Moving on to the actual best girl of the series, there's Roxy. She is the best girl, but I didn't really like her that much. Well, I did like her more than like Eris at first when I was watching the anime, but over time I grew like okay, I can understand the respect that Rudius has for Roxy, but I still like Eris more because of how strong her character is. But that's just because Roxy is Roxy. She's a timid mage that tried to explore the world at a young age, made many mistakes, and ended up becoming the master. Well, she was originally the first master of one of the world's legendary characters in the world, Rudius. Even though she was the second wife of Rudius, she made sure that she wasn't left behind. She made sure that she commanded attention from him whenever she wanted, and she tried her best. Roxy is God. That's basically it. Roxyism is only shared by one person, and that's Rudius and the readers. So moving on from the second wife, by the way, Eris is the third wife, and to the first wife, Sylphie, Sylphiette. Now, early in the series, we meet Sylphie. She's a reverse tomboy, I mean the reverse trap, and then we get the same reverse trap treatment in the magic arc. Now, that arc felt really strained because just come out and say it like, yeah, I'm your girl from back in the village days, but she just, I guess the author was struggling to plan out rest ahead and trying to buy himself time. But I actually like that arc because Sylphie went from a full closed off in the basket to, okay, I'm the girl from the village, please fuck me, I want to be your wife. Not that bluntly, but it kind of felt that way. So I like Sylphie because she took the time to be considerate and try and figure out how to support Rudius in the best way she can. Now, moving on from Sylphie, we have Orsted, which is probably one of or the strongest character in all of Mushoku Tensei. Now, Orsted is an enigma at first because he straight up just kills Rugid. I I won't lie, I still haven't learned to pronounce his name because I've just been reading him for so long. But anyway, so Orsted just straight up kills Rugid and he kills Rudius. and then afterwards he makes them he becomes their allies and stuff to fight against Hitogami. I'll get on Hitogami's case much later, but basically Orsted is an enigma because he is the protagonist in his own story. He's been fighting Hitogami for so long. He's been experiencing this hellhole of a journey for countless eons. God knows how old Orsted is. But when he met Rudius and was willing to protect his family, it just opened up to, man, you really shouldn't trust what other people say about other people, especially in a fictional story. Because Orsted may be the most scariest person on the entire world of Mushoku Tensei, but in reality, he's probably the only hero that really matters. He made sure to allow Rudius time with his family, he made sure that Rudius is safe, and he made sure that at the end of the day, even though Rudius wasn't the one to complete the goal in mind, he made sure that Rudius completed all the tasks that Rudius needed to do so he could spend the rest of his life with his family. The final battle with um, the Demon Lord, Rudius, and everyone else was the climax of the story. It brought together all of Orsted and Rudius's efforts, bringing all the allies, all the old friends that we have from the earlier arcs. It was just complete at the end of the final battle. Now, speaking of the final battle, let's talk about the main man himself. Well, the not so main man himself, Hitogami. Now, at first, the suspicion that Rudius had towards Hitogami was kind of warranted. But then when Rudius started to trust him, he's like, yeah, it's going well. However, after I think it was turning point 4, when the older Rudius came back to warn Rudius about Hitogami, the story picked up. You just couldn't stop turning pages or reading chapters. But Hitogami, if he literally wanted for his life to last longer or his powers to be not sealed, all he had to do was just leave Rudius alone, and he would have been active longer. But he threatened the family, and that kind of pissed off Big Boy Rudius. So he went to Orsted, knocked him down, and then joined his camp. So Hitogami as a villain, he works very well because it's not his actions that directly conflict with Rudius. It's his actions that employ other people to conflict with Rudius is what makes the conflict so well and thought out, because Hitogami is basically a god. He is a god. He can do things that no one can expect, and yet Rudius, a man, a loser, a hikikomori, managed to defeat a god. Like, yeah, it's like a JRPG basically. It was kind of cathartic. It was kind of cathartic to think that Hitogami would show Rudius the exact moment he was defeated, and I found that very fulfilling because you spend the latter half of the entire web novel preparing to fight Hitogami, and you only get about, I think it was like about a paragraph of it, but that paragraph felt so fulfilled when you read it because it's one of the last things that Rudius gets to see. Well, one of the last things that we get to see of Rudius in the series. Now, let's talk about the ending of the series. The ending of the series, I was prepared to record my reaction, cry at the end of it, but I only really teared up when I found out that Eris dies before Rudius. But that's just like the only emotion. Besides that, my poker face went hard and I was still pissed, so my recording was useless. And I love the ending, especially the final volume, because everything before the final volume was okay, this is A to B. When we finally got to B, we got to see the outcome of Rudius's hard work, all his children and his grandchildren, all the allies and the family that he built. It was wholesome and it was complete. It for in that moment I didn't feel like, okay, my favorite story is ending and I have nothing to do now. In that moment, I felt complete as a person and as a person consuming Mushoku Tensei. Now, I guess that's it for a while of Mushoku Tensei. I was just spitting out words. Zanoba is best boy. I'll keep that over Cliff. Yeah, I said it. Zanoba is best boy. Anyway, there are other characters, but I don't really have a lot to say about them. So I guess I'll just try to abbreviate them. So, like, yeah, Zanoba is best boy. Rugged is best dad, but Paul is such a great father. Norn and Aisha, they're cute. They're cute little emotos. One stubborn, one's cute as a maid. We have Elise, who is the grandma of Sylphie. Make sure that she made sure to take care of Sylphie's family and Sylvie herself after finding out that they're related. It was quite nice finding out that Sylvie still has a family member besides Rudius after they got married. Now I'm gonna be talking about the author, Ryufujin no Mago Note. Now, you garden way more than Aisha ever did. You plant so much story beats and we won't see them flower till way later on in the series. And it felt so rewarding meeting a new character and wondering what they'll be in the future and we get to see them, especially around the last arc when all the allies came to help Rudius. It was fulfilling. And even after Rudius's death at the end of the series, he made sure to give us he made sure to answer our questions like why did Rudius reincarnate and what happened after his death? What's the effect that Rudius Grey Art had on the world of Mushoku Tensei? The biography at the end that felt more like a eulogy. It it was complete. It had everything that he did, everything that we knew, and it had everything that we didn't know that he did after the story ended. To see how much of a legendary figure Rudius became after the events of Mushoku Tensei, I thank you. I thank you for writing this wonderful story, and I thank you for changing me as a person because I read your story. Now, I know I'm a broke piece of shit, and I won't be able to buy the figures to help support you, but I'll try my best. I'll simp hard for Mushoku Tensei. I'll make sure that enough people watch it so that eventually they can support you as well. Now, I know you're secretly worsted, so don't kill me. And thank you for writing Mushoku Tensei. And the last thing I want to say is I'll be checking out the rest of your work. I know Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation is the actual title, but it's just easier to say Mushoku Tensei, and that's just the story following Rudius. Now, I'll be checking out the rest of your works because some of your works involve the characters of Mushoku Tensei that I met and I fell in love with, and I want to see their stories more. So I'll be checking out the rest of your work. Thank you for creating this wonderful world, and thank you for changing me. And before I end the video, there are two people I want to thank. I want to thank AniNews for convincing me to watch the anime, and I want to thank my friend Pablo for convincing me to read the web novels. Now, I wasn't gonna watch Mushoku Tensei because I'm already burnt out on Isekai anime because there's just so much. But his video convinced me to watching it, and after I watched it, I felt like a kid again. I felt so happy to have to wait 1 week to find out just what happens, one little milk drop of a story. And it was it that's with that inspiration after watching the anime, I just wanted to know more. I saw that it had a manga, but I didn't want to read it because it has a web novel. So even if I catch up to the manga, I'm still gonna be incomplete. And then this is where my friend Pablo comes in. He read the entire web novel before me, and I was surprised, and he told me he did it in a day. And then he told me where I could read it, and I read it, and yeah, thank you, Pablo. Especially those conversations where we talk about all the events that happen in the series, what happens in this, who does what, all the nitty gritty and naughty stuff of the series. But yeah, thanks guys. I enjoyed myself. I'm gonna be making another video soon. If you wanna follow the piece of shit degenerate that's on the screen right now, you can follow my Twitter and my Instagram. I mainly use my Twitter to post random shit posts. If you don't want a degenerate in your feed, well, don't follow me. Anyway, I won't say like or subscribe because this video is basically just for me and I guess the author and Pablo. So yeah, that's it.